Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and today on the podcast, the hospitality staffing crisis continues and does not look like it is letting up anytime soon. So, if it's here to stay, how are you going to cope with that, and what does that mean for the coffee industry? Before we get started, thanks to our episode sponsor, Baratza. Head to the show notes. If you are looking for a manual brewing grinder, Baratza make the best in the world. So head to the show notes, click on the link and go and find the perfect grinder for you today. Now, there is a staffing crisis everywhere you look in the coffee industry, in restaurants, in everything to do with hospitality, hotels, etc., etc. You are finding a crisis of staffing. People are choosing to leave the industry and go off onto different endeavors. And a dear friend of mine recently said to me, Lee, where are they all going? How come there is nobody that wants to work in hospitality anymore? Why everywhere I look, people are hiring? Every cafe I walk past has a staff wanted sign. Most cafes that you see these days are reducing their hours because they simply cannot find staff. What does this mean for us? What does it mean for the industry long term? Is this a terrible thing? Truth be told, I think this has been a long time coming, and I think that the pandemic gave people in all industries the opportunity to reassess and make a decision about the quality of their life. It gave people the opportunity to assess every relationship. As the great Dave Chappelle says, it gave everyone an opportunity to reassess the social contracts that they've made. It's not just the social contracts, it's also the professional contracts that people have been invited to reassess. People are asking themselves, do I really love doing what I do? Is it worth the return on investment? Am I as satisfied with what I get out of this relationship as my employer is with what they get out of this relationship? As it has it, it turns out that the majority of people in hospitality have decided that this is not for them. And we have seen a mass exodus out of our industry. When this happened, what you started to notice was that people were told to stay home. When they got to stay home because of the initial parts of the pandemic and the recent lockdown that we had here in Sydney, when people stayed home, they got the opportunity to rest. They usually earned more money than they did in hospitality. And they got a moment to feel what it was like to feel whole again. And they came back from that and decided that this was not worth it. As a result, cafes are finding it very difficult, and roasteries are finding it very difficult to keep up with their monthly fixed expenses. So these are the expenses that you know you're going to get an invoice for, whether you sell 1 million products or no products. Now, when you have to significantly reduce the amount of money that you're earning as a business, so your revenue is decreased, but your fixed costs stay the same, there's only a certain amount of time you can sustain that before you can't survive month to month anymore. So eventually there are going to be businesses, if this doesn't turn around, there are going to be businesses who survived this far into the pandemic that are going to go under even though they are successful. That's not all businesses, that's some businesses. It's the businesses who fail to automate. It's the businesses who fail to figure out how to streamline their processes to less employees. It's the businesses who fail to adapt and figure out how they can operate on less staff. And there will be businesses that are like that. Is this a good thing for our industry? It depends how you look at it. In a lot of cities around the world that are coffee cities, cities like Sydney, cities like New York, cities like London, cities that are new coffee cities but are already saturated, like Dubai and Saudi Arabia. What's going to happen is that you're going to start to see that the saturation level of cafes is going to go down. We're seeing that in Melbourne as well, one of the great coffee cities in the world. That because of the ongoing stress, this employee crisis or staff crisis being another one of them, we're going to start to see businesses voluntarily or being forced to close because they're insolvent. And what that really means is that we are going to have two things potentially happening. The saturation of the number of cafes and roasting companies in those cities goes down, which could be great because that means that the businesses that are left are able to hopefully absorb some staff and perhaps keep their businesses open. And because there are less businesses servicing the same amount of customers, they will hopefully be able to increase their revenue. Now, the downside of that is what got us into this mess in the first place, and why I think that what's happening is a long time coming for our industry. We have no barrier to entry for people wanting to own businesses, and people see opening cafes and opening roasting businesses to be like that second lease of life that they get when they want to leave their corporate job and they just go open a coffee-focused business because it's going to be easy. Famous last words. So what I'm worried about is that we get a new influx of people coming into the industry who don't know what they're doing. A lot of those people their businesses had been wiped out in the first 12 to 18 months of the pandemic. It was just getting too hard to hold on. And now if we get a new influx of people who are coming into the industry with no experience, not understanding how much work is required, not understanding the supply chain constraints and the logistical constraints that we're under as an industry, not understanding this very, very real situation of staffing crisis that we're experiencing all over the world in hospitality, that's a business that's going to be destined to fail as well. Again, as I said, successful businesses are failing because they cannot meet the revenue demands of their business. They cannot service the customers they have because they don't have any staff. This is a really, really challenging time for our industry. And it's just something that we need to be thinking about and adapting to. If you are thinking about automating, this is the time to do it. If you are thinking about shifting the culture in your business to be attractive to staff, I would recommend you go and check out a business by the name of That in Saudi Arabia. It's thatcafe.co on Instagram. It's Sara Al-Al's coffee business. It's her cafe. She's about to launch that. Sara is the host of our Middle East podcast, and she is doing incredible things with the way that she is hiring for her staff, and she is getting incredible applications. Why? Because the culture that she is looking to build in that cafe is what people are looking for. It's a kind of culture that really celebrates people. That's their tagline, celebrating people. But it's not just the customers, and it's not just the staff, and it's not just the suppliers, and it's not just the leaders. It's everybody. So check it out. We will put a link in the show notes. Thatcafe.co on Instagram. It will be well worth your time. I'm very proud of what Sara's done, and I'm very proud to watch her be very intentional about the kind of employees she wants to attract and the way that she's going out there and being very clear and assertive in the way that she's communicating what she needs from her staff. I like it when we have examples in the industry that we can point to. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's giving you something to think about. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.